So one of the things I really want to do with this channel is get out of the shop and do my videos outside. So here's an outside video. Part of the problem with that, of course, is that we have to contend with the wind because I live in a very windy area. So sound quality is going to kind of suck on this one. Everything is sideways and seems to be getting more and more sideways. And as much as I want to change my focus, after spending several years in various stripes of political activism, I'm very disturbed by some things that are happening right now. Right now we have the First Amendment under attack, primarily by the left in the United States, and the Second Amendment, of course, and portions of the Fourth Amendment, of course, and the Fifth Amendment, and the 10th Amendment. It depends on who the enemy is, though. You'll hear people like the ACLU claim that they are champions of the Fourth Amendment, except when it doesn't suit them. And that's one of the problems we're having right now. The First Amendment is under attack by the entirety of the left. And I'm using a broad brush here, but I'll get into why I'm doing that. You need to listen to me explain this a little bit to understand why I'm using a broad brush. The First Amendment includes a phrase about freedom of the press. And the media, our mainstream, large corporate, primarily leftist media, our ideologically left media, which is this weird, unholy alliance of corporate power and extreme left ideology. They seem to feel that that amendment, the First Amendment, was written so that press literally meant the core of professionally accepted journalists. So the press, as a body of journalists, is a word that was not used until 1922. Before that, the press meant both publishing houses and the technology of the press. The First Amendment refers very specifically and directly, at the time of its writing, to the ability to publish, the freedom of the printing press, the freedom of the physical ability to press. And the left really hates that. The left is very much against that. They want to protect journalists that they like. Okay? So you'll hear that if Donald Trump kicks somebody out of the White House press briefing room for bad behavior, that it's an attack on the First Amendment, and it's not. But at the same time, removing platforms, removing the ability to use the press, the modern technological press, is perfectly acceptable. They are attacking the First Amendment. Religion is another area. Free exercise of religion is attacked constantly by the left. It's just, oh, it's so bad. It's so insane. And lately they've been trying to use it as some sort of reverse thing about an abortion debate and a law in Louisiana or something, and it really makes no sense. Freedom of religion does not mean freedom to restrict religious expression in political and public spheres. And the left really hates that. The American left, and I'm painting again with a very broad brush, does not accept public religiosity. They don't want me as a heathen, you as a Christian, you as a Jew, to be publicly religious. They don't want you to be able to use religious themes in your political discourse, your protected speech. Freedom of religion to them means only that you are free to practice whatever religion you want in your bedroom, with the lights off and the curtains closed. Political speech is another, and the double standard is absolutely horrendous. Okay? A Republican can't block people from Twitter, but a Democrat can, just because that's the way it works. It's absolutely horrible, and it's so frustrating. And then recently there was a mass shooting, and it's a mass shooting that deserved national coverage, but was not a national stop the presses, stop the country kind of thing. And And I don't want to make light of it. I don't want to belittle the tragedy. But it's not 9/11. It's not Pearl Harbor. It's not. And the media wants to treat it that way. They want to blow everything up out of proportion to the point where there's nothing left. You literally cannot even feel good about your personal dramas, overcoming your personal dramas, because the death of 3 people over here is national news because of the color of their skin or their gender identity or something. Or the death of 11 people over here is the end of the world and more important than actual wars. And again, I don't want to belittle it, but that 19 people get killed by a knife in Japan, and there's barely any news coverage. It's just not a thing. The only reason this is such a huge deal is because of the gun drama, because of the Second Amendment. And here is where I'm going to explain why I'm painting the left with a very broad brush. Gun control is racist. Gun control has been openly racist through most of our history. The Gun Control Act of 1968 was the last major legislation that was really openly racist. I think after that, the federal government started to tone it down. There were still lots of state laws that were pretty openly, blatantly racist. And they replaced that racism, the overt racism after 1968, with a kind of a classism, a socioeconomic, classism, definitely bigotry. But they hid the race part of it underneath a white sheet. And you end up with the FOPA, the FOPA of 1986, and the Brady Bill, and the assault weapons ban, all had little things in there to make it harder for people of lower socioeconomic strata or less opportunity to exercise basic civil liberties. Now, the left won't agree with me on this because they don't see the Second Amendment as a civil liberty. They see it as a mistake. But it is a civil liberty. It's there. It's in the Constitution. It is acknowledged as a civil liberty. It's acknowledged by the whole entire Supreme Court, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as a personal right to self-defense, a personal right to own firearms. So we can't have a debate about this because the left as a whole, and I mean this very universally, won't accept that there's anything to debate. All they want is gun bans. Everything is an incrementalized gun ban. That is the stated end goal position. And there's not a whole lot of contentious debate about that. The quotes are everywhere. Now, why do I say the entire left? Because with this latest shooting in Virginia, all of the focus is on the use of a suppressor. Even though police responded to the sounds of gunfire, which is very specifically something that was stated multiple times and has been removed from articles by the AP no less, and an extended magazine. Now, it was a .45 caliber handgun, so people don't want to tell you what the extended magazine capacity was. We're talking 10 or 15 rounds. An extended magazine, 10 rounds is an extended magazine for a 1911, okay? So we're not talking 30-round magazines here. We're certainly not talking 30-round fully automatic clipazines or whatever Nancy Pelosi wants to say. But the focus is very much on a suppressor and magazines, because the goal here is not the tragedy, not to talk about the tragedy, not to figure out what went wrong. Why did this guy do this? The goal is gun control. And the left is being a bunch of assholes and playing politics with people's lives and a tragedy. And it really pisses me off. They don't care about black violence. They don't care that the majority cause of death for black males in younger age groups is black on black violence. Intra-racial murders. They don't care. They don't care about the urban poor or the rural poor, regardless of color. They don't care about the violent crime causes, the violent crime rates. Crime overall is at a very low low point in terms of our national history. Violent crime is just amazingly low overall, all across the board. Where we do have a lot of it, it's concentrated in specific minority or socioeconomic groups, okay? The rural poor, the urban poor, and African Americans especially. You get some of that with Latinos as well. And the left doesn't care. Why is it the entire left? Because no one is standing up and saying a damn thing about it. If the Democrats start using this tragedy, as they are, to talk about banning suppressors, closing the registry, pulling a 1986 machine gun registry closure, they don't give a single fart about ending actual inner city violence. They care about suppressors. They care about taking something away from white men because that's what they see as the problem. And it has me shaking with rage at times. No one on the left is coming together in a group and standing up to this. This is so evil, so horrible, so awful. You're going to try to take away suppressors, okay? And honestly, I've been looking forward to deregulated suppressors because they're a safety item. They're very fundamental, basic safety equipment for firearms all across the world, except here in the United States, where the left thinks that, like Elizabeth Moon said, Republican death squads can come attack Democrats silently. But it's not the suppressors that piss me off so much. It's the fact that you're using a tragedy to attack a civil liberty and ignoring massive societal problems. The left would be perfectly willing to see 500 black-on-black murders in Chicago between now and August 1st if they get their gun control passed. That's shitty. And none of you on the left stand up to it. That's what has me painting with a broad brush. No one in the Democratic Party is saying anything. The Republicans are busy fighting and throwing fisticuffs at each other over whether or not a bump stock ban is actually a good or a bad idea. There's a lot of debate. School lunches, church, or school prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance. The Republicans debate all of this stuff, and the left has this kind of monolithic, extremist position. And it's very racist, and it's very bigoted, and it's very awful, and no one will stand up to it. And it just has me so freaking angry. So I decided I would go ahead and make this video. A little bit of a rant, and it's not what I want to focus the channel. I want to get away from this so bad. You know, the left is just going to push and push and push. Eventually, the ideas of freedom of religion, the ideas of a freedom of the press, free political speech, self-defense rights, gun rights, privacy rights. All of this is going to go underground. We are literally going to become dissidents, like Soviet-era dissidents in our own country. To own a firearm and print out or Xerox or send from an anonymous email your own newsletter, samizdat. It's going to become a thing that it's a black market. It's an underground, and the left is going to do that to us. So the question is, where do you draw that line? Where do you start ignoring the bad laws? Where do you start ignoring the bad government? Where do you start ignoring restrictions? You know, people say, well, a restriction on high-capacity magazines is not like a restriction on Facebook posting. Isn't it? Isn't it? Would Solzhenitsyn agree with you? Why is one of these things worse? Stay sideways.